in a bigger box.
Let me tell you something.
Sure, it's the heaviest box in.
You must think of Jerry Thompson file.
Yeah, that's the inconsistent statements filing Jerry Thompson.
You know what's been on my mind since I've been in here?
You've got to be
I'm
kidding.
telling you, that's all I'm thinking about.
You missed me?
Yeah, I do. You know, every day. Yeah, he doesn't like food if he's
No? You're watching it.
oh, yeah. Watching it, are you? Watching really?
He's a fish fry.
Yeah. If we had him for one day, we just want to take it.
He's nice.
Yes, he said, should be sweet. I said, he's sweet.
Yeah, he's... You don't take no more He's the boss.
Because I kick at it as close as I can get.
She's got my leg on. My left one, I'm always going to get it. Cut it out.
You're on camera.
On camera, everything. I can't believe it. Now tonight my wife was sitting there watching that and all of a sudden she went up, listen to the conversation. They was fixing to. You don't take much of that rubber mix. I thought I was too old the other day, and again right now, I still got life, I'll tell you that much. And here I thought I was fading out.
This thing is picking up $2.
Well, I missed
You seen Gloria?
He's been around today.
Everybody rise, please. Please be seated. Court will come to order. You have Mr. Allo to call.
Your Honor, I think that we can just do it by way of stipulation. The only thing we wanted was the measurement from the spot where Anita Neary said she was in the foyer to the front door.
Well, isn't it on our diagram?
It doesn't have a measurement on it.
Yeah, but it's got a scale. Isn't it? See something about it?
Got a scale, I see it
2
from
inches
here.
equal 1 foot or
No, that's
something?
the wrong one. Yes, sir, I think that we agreed that the measurement is 19 and a half feet.
Isn't that scale where 2 inches equal half inch?
8 inches equal 1 foot.
Well, I'll take it from there.
Somebody over there.
No, I can't remember what the guard is. We have to do it right now. I'll go get a ruler.
The diagram is in evidence. The 2 spots have been marked as best we can ascertain.
All right.
And you can put a footage ruler on there and then read it from
All right, and the only other thing, Your Honor, is that we had some pictures of the wallpaper, but I haven't been able to show them to Mr. Simpson yet. And the color of the dark blue wallpaper in the entrance hall there that we wanted to put into evidence, and I need to show them to Mr. Simpson. And Joe Alloy is supposed to be with.
Have you seen them?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I've seen the wallpaper.
I'll let you bring it in out of order. It doesn't make any difference.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Are we ready to proceed on the next motion?
That's all I got.
That was all I was going to call Mr. Alloy for, yes, sir.
And then that's all the testimony on the motion to suppress with the exception of the measure from Mr. Allo and part of the wallpaper.
And the wallpaper, the color of the wallpaper.
All right.
As soon as I get those photos, I'll show them to Mr. Simpson, see if he has any objection.
All right. All right, on the motion to suppress the testimony of Anita Neary, the court has heard the testimony and will hear argument on it at the close of the motion to suppress testimony from Ogden, Utah, I guess, is next one you're going into?
Yes, sir. It's Granger, Utah.
Granger, Utah, wherever it's at. I was absent today. They were naming those towns, and I'm not sure. All right. We'll proceed with that motion then.
Judge, I realize that the Utah Supreme Court decision that went up after the trial and the appeal and whatnot is not mandatory on the court, but we certainly feel that it's persuasive authority, and we've got a certified copy of that Utah Supreme Court opinion, and they did consider the fact of this particular search that we're talking about, and we would ask that you consider that as our first item of evidence. Y'all have a copy of it?
Has this case cited,
I don't have the site in the reporter, Judge.
filed December 28, 1978, from the Supreme Court of Utah?
That's correct.
Your Honor, is the introduction of the Supreme Court opinion in Utah by way of argument or evidence?
It's probably both, Mr. Bundy.
All right. Well, we'll be heard on its admission or its significance or lack thereof in argument.
I'm sure you can probably argue anything on that is appropriate. The question is, during the course of trial, this court would receive the opinion for whatever weight it might have, and will let you consider the argument on the weight or its applicability.
Certainly. At present, though, I would simply register my objection to its introduction on the grounds that it does not address the legality of the search in question.
All right. Let the record reflect the court will receive it only for the matters alluded to therein, and if it concerns the question of search, I'll hear the argument as it relates to conflict argument concerning the concept of whether it's res judicata or not.
That's all we want to do, Judge.
All right.
Bob Hayward.
Madam Clerk, I want this marked, and then we want to make a copy of that. Opinion, if you will.
It states exhibit 1 on this note, and we want to-
Come right over here, please, sir. Step up to the witness box and raise your right hand.
And do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Be seated. And
Let's proceed.
thank you, Judge. And state your full name, please, sir.
Robert Hayward,
Occupation,
Utah State Highway Patrol,
and how long have you been so employed?
26 years.
Do you hold a rank with the patrol?
Sergeant.
Directing your attention back to August 16th, 1975. Do you recall being on duty on that day?
Yes, sir, I was.
Specifically at 2:30 in the morning that day?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall pursuing any vehicle at that time?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you just tell the court in your own words the circumstances surrounding that situation?
Yes, I was stopped in front of my house at approximately 20 minutes to 3 a.m. on that morning. A light-colored Volkswagen went by my car there. Several minutes later, I went to assist the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office on some juvenile drinking problem. I went around the street, and as I turned the street and back of my house, I threw the lights on bright. The Volkswagen took off at a high rate of speed with no lights on.
You're right.
At this point, I think it's appropriate to interpose an objection. The testimony that the officer may give at this point, we would hold to be immaterial and irrelevant to the issue of whether the search was legal, in that the circumstances preceding the stop of the vehicle do not, in this instance, reflect on whether or not the intrusion into my vehicle was legal under the Constitution.
No objection, we'll overrule it. The question of establishment of probable cause, it has no relevancy, I'll stop.
Your Honor, we would stipulate at this point to sufficient cause to stop the car. The issue is what happened after the car was stopped.
If that's part of the probable cause, I will allow you to proceed, even though the stipulation. Go ahead.
Okay. I gave chase on the Volkswagen. And this went for several blocks through stop signs. Through the subdivision, 40, 45, through 2 stop signs, and then out onto a main road where the vehicle pulled over and stopped in an abandoned gas station.
Okay.
At that time, I approached the driver, and he got out and came back, and we met approximately at the back end of the Volkswagen.
I think you'd recognize the driver if you saw him again?
Yes, sir, I was.
See him anywhere in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Where is he?
That's the man right there with the pencil in his mouth.
With the what?
The
Pencil
pen in his
mouth?
mouth.
We have a stipulation on it.
Mr. Bundy.
We'd have a difficult time if you removed the pen. If you can name him, point him out.
That's the man with the blue shirt on, the coat.
It's all right, fine.
No, it was Theodore Robert Bundy.
Theodore Robert Bundy.
What happened next?
I asked Mr. Bundy what he was doing in the neighborhood, and he stated he was lost. And I asked him where he had been, and he stated to a drive-in movie west of where we was, about 3 or 4 miles. He stated he had been seeing the Towering Inferno at that theater, which I'd been patrolling that area most of the night, and that was not the movie that was playing there at all. So anyway, I asked him to step back between the cars. There was 2 other troopers there.
Where were they?
They just pulled up in their car and was sitting there in their car.
They still in the car?
Yeah,
Any show of weapons at this point?
none at all.
Okay.
I asked the other officers there if they would just watch him for a minute, and I looked in Mr. Bundy's car with my flashlight.
Any part of your body break in the window or anywhere to get it to see in there?
No.
Did you remain outside the car and looking inside?
Yes, sir, I did. I looked in, the passenger seat was not in there. And just looking through in the car, the passenger seat was out and laying on its side in the back seat, which was very peculiar to me. So I walked back to Mr. Bundy and asked him if I could look in his car. And he said, go ahead.
His exact words?
Go ahead.
Okay. What happened next?
So I went back to the passenger side, opened the car door, and looked in his car.
What'd you find?
In back of the driver's seat, there was a small crowbar looking affair, probably 12, 14 inches long. The passenger seat was laying on the side in the back seat, and alongside of the driver's seat was a small satchel. That satchel was open, and I looked in there, and I found a ski mask. And
What kind of a ski mask?
just a net pulled down over the head type ski mask, standard for what we have in Utah.
Made out of wool?
Yes.
Okay. What else?
And there was some rope, and an ice pick, and some pantyhose.
What kind of pantyhose? Anything unusual about them?
The pantyhose had holes in them.
Where?
I don't know how to describe it. There were just some holes cut in them. And some other items in there I wrote down. With a large plastic bag in there. I don't know what that was in there.
Okay, we're not really interested in the other items. We're specifically interested in the pantyhose. If you can give us have you ever seen what's sometimes called a pantyhose mask?
I have, yes.
Is this the type of holes you're talking about?
That would be it.
Would that be consistent with the description of it you've given us?
Yes, sir. It was small, and I did pick it up and look at it, and it had holes in it. side
You
by
better more
side.
fully describe that. I would interpose an objection to the defendant at this time. I understand he's serving his own counsel. You missed that one, my friend, but we'll catch them together, all right? Go ahead. Let's restate that consistent with the way it ought to be.
Let me see if I can make it real clear, Judge. You have this marked, Madam Clerk. This is number what?
185.
Show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 1A for identification. I ask you if you can identify that picture.
That would look exactly or very, very similar to the pantyhose that night.
All right. As you see it there, has it been changed in any fashion from the way you saw it that night?
None to my knowledge.
We'd move it into evidence.
For the purpose of the motion, Your Honor, no objection.
Be received without objection.
So that I understand, is this a fair and accurate representation of the pantyhose mask you saw in Utah?
It is.
All right. Judge. During the time that you were looking in the car and looking in that specific satchel, at any point did Mr. Bundy object to that search that was ongoing?
No, sir.
Describe for the court, if you will, the scope of your authority at that time with the law enforcement agency.
We, in the state of Utah, work, the Highway Patrol works straight traffic, very, very little criminal. And if and when we do confront any criminal activity, we'd immediately call Salt Lake County or the city or wherever we might be working at that time to handle any criminal actions.
All right, is a Utah State Trooper, as a general situation, authorized to make arrests throughout the state of Utah?
Throughout the state of Utah, yes.
And what county did this occur in?
Salt Lake County,
What city generally?
Granger.
Who else arrived at the scene? You said 2 troopers were there. How long did it take for them to arrive on the scene?
Just a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, and he was there.
Who else arrived after that? Anybody?
I called the sheriff's office and asked for a detective car. 2 uniformed officers showed and stood by, and then Detective Ondrak, Daryl Ondrak from the county sheriff's office arrived on the scene.
That's all I have, Judge.
And cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Is that Sergeant Hayward now? Sergeant Hayward, did you prepare a report based upon the stop and the search that you just testified to?
Did I prepare a report?
A written report, yes. Do you have it with you?
We have what we call an incident report that we make out.
Objection to the use of the report as evidence.
You haven't used it as evidence yet.
But he may do it. Hasn't been offered yet.
Thank you. Did you review that report before coming here today?
You bet.
Did you have anything else that you used in preparing for your testimony today by way of refreshing your memory?
Just my reports.
Reports, is there another report?
Yeah, right here on the back of this, I jot little notes down on the back of things.
May I see that, please?
Yes.
I noticed, Sergeant, you also have a booking photograph in front of you.
A what?
A photograph in front of you. Would you mind if you could identify whose photograph that is?
That's you, Theodore Robert Bundy.
And when we're going back to your incident report, when was that written, if I might ask, please?
Just shortly after the incident, see, this was written and filled out on October 14th.
And, officer, if there's a conflict between your testimony today and the contents of the report, which would be more accurate?
Objection, there's been no such situation.
There's been no statement of inaccuracy. If you have some discrepancies in there, questioning first on the discrepancy and then
Sergeant Hayward, let's begin with the stop of my vehicle on August the 15th. Would you please tell me what happened after you pulled the Volkswagen over in Granger? What happened? What did you do, and what did the occupant, what did I do?
You stepped out of your Volkswagen, and as I stepped out of the patrol car, and we met approximately at the rear of your Volkswagen.
Please describe the vicinity where you had stopped the Volkswagen, the type of neighborhood, the type of area that the stop occurred in.
There was an abandoned gas station.
Abandoned gas station. Describe the lighting in the vicinity, or in that particular spot where you stopped the Volkswagen. Was it bright? Was it dim? Was it dark?
Well, there's some lights in the area. I wouldn't call it exceptionally light.
What time of day was it?
Pardon?
What time of day was it?
This was approximately 2:45 a.m.
And was it dark out?
Yes, it was.
Was there a lot of traffic on the road at that time?
Not too bad, no.
How would you describe the traffic conditions in the vicinity where you, on the street where you stopped the Volkswagen? A lot of traffic, very little traffic, no traffic?
Little traffic that time of the morning.
All right, what was the first question, or what was the first thing you said to me when you got out of your car?
I asked for your driver's license and registration.
Do you remember comments you made previous to that? Previous to asking me for my driver's license?
No, I can't recall one.
Do you remember whether or not you told me that I should have got out and run, that you could have taken my head off? Do you remember saying that? Prior to asking me for my driver's license, do you remember saying something to the effect that I should have gotten out and run, you could have taken my head off?
No, sir, I don't recall that.
You don't recall that? No. And what did I do after you requested the driver's license?
You gave me a driver's license and registration of the vehicle.
And what did you do?
I read them and asked if that's still where you lived and resided on the avenues, and you said yes.
Were there other officers on the scene at that time? The time I gave you my driver's license?
I'm not sure they was there right then or shortly after.
And was there anybody with me in the Volkswagen?
No, you were alone.
And before I forget to ask the $64,000 question, did you have a search warrant to search my car?
No, sir.
After you verified that the address was current, that you had a current Utah driver's license from me, what did you do, officer?
I placed you by my right front fender and asked the other officer to watch you for a minute while I flashed a light in your car.
Now, you asked another officer to watch me? Mm-hmm. You remember the name of that officer?
There was, one was named Brent Fowles.
What was the purpose of asking that officer to watch me?
Would you believe I didn't trust you?
You didn't want me to run away, is that what you're saying?
Probably.
Was I free to leave at that point?
I would doubt that.
Was I in, well, the alternative, was I in custody at that point? Your custody?
No.
Yeah, you placed me in the, hesitate to use the word custody. You told Officer Fowles to watch me, and then you did what?
I went back and shined a light in your car.
What kind of light?
Flashlight.
You would describe to me where you shine the light, where you first used the light, how you examined the car with the flashlight.
Yeah, I just shined a light in the windows and took a look at what I could see from the window. The crowbar and the seat in the back. The passenger seat was on the back seat and I could see that through the windows.
What window did you start with first? The rear window, the passenger side window, the driver's side window, if you recall?
It seemed like I was on the driver's side window first, and when I placed you back by the fender, I went back on the passenger side window.
You shone your flashlight inside the car, and could you describe to me as much detail as you can recall exactly what you saw and in what order, if you can recall, what you saw?
I saw a small crowbar behind your seat on the floor, and I saw the passenger seat in the back seat on its side, and a small satchel along the side of the driver's seat.
You see a small satchel on the side of the driver's seat. What side of the driver's seat? Left or right? On the right side?
Right-hand side.
Describe to me the satchel as you saw it.
Well, it wasn't a big one. It was probably maybe 14, 15 inches long, and it was more small and round. What do you, 6 or 8 inches in depth, something similar to that.
What color was it?
I'm thinking it was kind of a brownish color.
Have you seen that brown satchel since the stop on August the 15th?
No, I have not.
All right. What else do you recall about the satchel? When you were shining the flashlight into the car and looking at the contents of the interior of the car?
You must miss me on that. Would you ask that again?
Oh. We've got you shining the flashlight in, let's say, the passenger side window. Is that where you saw first recognized the brown satchel when you're shining your flashlight in there? Now, what you've described as being a satchel about so big and so deep, the testimony reflects it was brown. What else was there about it?
It was open.
And what did you see inside?
Well, after I got permission from you to go inside.
At that time, with the flashlight?
That's all I saw.
Just the brown satchel? Is that correct? Just the
That's
satchel?
right.
Let's back up just a little bit, and I want to make sure that you are able to relate as much detail as possible the conversations that transpired between yourself and me. Now, we had a discussion, according to your testimony, about the driver's license. Is that correct? Is it also your testimony that the discussion about my whereabouts took place in the early, just after I was stopped?
Yes.
Now, what was your question when you wanted to know. You can recall the exact question you asked me.
I asked you what you were doing in the neighborhood.
Is that the question you asked? As nearly as you can remember?
What was you doing in my neighborhood? Is that better?
That sounds, look at, we're getting there, officer. Was it, is that better? Or is that closer to what you remember saying? What were you doing in my neighborhood?
Objection, argument witness. Don't argue with it.
I'm not trying. Would it help you to refresh your recollection with any of your reports?
I don't have the exact wording down here either.
What, if you can recall, was the next thing you said to me or that I said to you after we had the discussion? Well, pardon me, let's back up to the question you asked, what are you doing in my neighborhood, okay? What was my response, according to you?
You was lost.
Did I say anything else?
Not to my recollection.
At that time, I didn't say anything else to your recollection.
You said, well, you was lost.
And what else did, if anything, did we discuss at that time that you can remember? Questions that you might have asked, for example.
I asked where you had been, and you told me that the drive-in theater, seeing the Towering Inferno.
That occurred about the same time in the stream of events we're talking about?
Probably a couple, 2 or 3 things there.
Okay. Was that before you started shining your flashlight in the windows?
That was before.
Now, were you familiar with any drive-in theater in the neighborhood?
Yes, I am.
Did you know whether or not the drive-in movie was playing there?
Yes, I did.
At that time?
Yes, sir.
What did you know?
I sent the one trooper back out to check the marquee
When did you send him out?
while we were still there or immediately following.
So you didn't know for sure that that movie was not playing there at that time? That's what I'm getting at. Is that true or not?
No, I was sure, but to make positive in my own mind, I'd been patrolling that movie in that area most of that night.
Okay, what's the next thing, or question that you asked, or response that I gave you prior to the time that you started examining the interior of the car with your flashlight? Is there anything else you said to me?
Not that I recall.
Anything else I said to you?
Before I,
Left me at the rear, or the front of your car with Officer Fowles, and you began examining the car. Anything else you can recall?
no, the only recall is I asked you if you'd stand by my right front fender.
Let's return now to your process of looking in the car with your flashlight. You've described the crowbar, seat being out, and the satchel. Is there anything else in the interior of the car that caught your attention?
The missing seat, the crowbar, and the satchel were the main things that I saw.
Okay. What did you do after you completed your looking in the car?
That's when I called for a detective car from the county.
Okay. And how did you summon the detective car?
By radio.
Why did you summon it?
Sustain objection. No, that's not considered. Why do you summon?
You summoned it by radio?
Yes.
And this was it a Salt Lake County Sheriff's detective that you summoned?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the name of the officer that you called for a specific detective?
No, I just asked for a detective car.
Well, After you told me to stand by the front of your car with Officer Fowles, when was the next time you had occasion to talk to me or ask me a question?
When
Chronologically, when was the next time you asked me anything or I talked to you?
When I come back to ask you if I could look in your car.
Okay, now when did you come back to ask me that question? When? Again, we're proceeding is step by step through this procedure. In point of time, when did you approach me to ask me that question?
I looked in your passenger side windows and seen these things, and I come back and asked you if I could look in your car.
Now, is that an accurate representation of what you said to me at that time?
Objection, arguing with the witness.
So, to the best of your recollection, then you asked me if you could look in my car.
Same objection.
Was there any response from me?
Yes.
And to the best of your recollection, and I want you to try to recall, with the aid of your reports if necessary, the exact words that you recall me saying to you in response to that question.
Go ahead. That was your words to me.
Is Officer Fowles still with me?
No.
Were there any other officers still at the scene?
No, when the deputies got there, the other officers left.
Well, there were deputies there now. At the time you asked me, can I look in your car, what police officers were on the scene? How many were there and where were they from, if you can recall?
There was 2 state troopers when I asked you that.
Were they standing within earshot? Could they hear what you said?
I don't.
If he knows.
If you know.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. In fact, they were both sitting in a car.
And when you asked me that question, where was I standing?
By my right front fender.
Still where you told me to go, is that right?
Right.
After that exchange, Officer Hayward, what did you do?
After I asked you if I could look in your car, then I went back and opened the passenger side door and looked in your car.
You looked in it?
Yes, sir.
And where did you search the car, officer?
I looked at the seat, the crowbar, and I looked in the satchel.
You looked in the satchel. And how did you examine the satchel? Exactly what did you do with the satchel?
The satchel was open a few inches, and I looked in it, and I picked a few things out and looked in it with a flashlight.
You had a flashlight with you? And can you give me a detailed description of the items you saw in the satchel?
Let's see.
You're
With
refreshing.
a rope, a piece of rope, some wire, an ice pick, plastic bag, ski mask, silk stocking. That's what I got down as being the contents of your satchel.
Did you notice anything peculiar at that time about, if there was anything peculiar at that time about the, quote, silk stocking, close quote?
Just that it had holes in it.
Get the picture. Thank you. do anything special with the stocking?
Did I?
Yes.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
How did you determine there were holes in it? You just happened to see holes in it?
Just looked at it. I didn't examine it or anything in there closely.
Have you seen that stocking since August the 15th, 1975?
Objection, irrelevant.
Have you seen that stocking that you saw in the brown satchel since August the 15th, 1975?
Yes.
Where?
Here?
In this courtroom?
No. In an evidence bag.
Can you look at this photograph marked as State's Exhibit number 2 and tell me if that, whether or not that is for sure the same silk stocking that you saw in the brown satchel on the date in question?
I'll say it's similar.
Did you place any initials or anything on that, on the silk stocking itself?
No, sir, when I run into that stuff, that's when I call to look for Detective Carr.
So you called for the detective car after you made the initial intrusion into the vehicle. Then is that at that time, is that when you decided to call the detective car?
Yes, sir.
What had you stopped me for on the morning of August 15th, 1975?
What did I stop you for?
Yes.
Failure to stop with the commanding police officer.
And in Utah, what kind of offense is that?
Indictable misdemeanor.
Do you indictable misdemeanor? You finished. Well, let's get back to what you were doing inside the car. You just testifying a few minutes ago that you examined the contents of the satchel.
Yes, sir.
What else, where did you go in the car next to search, if anywhere?
I didn't.
What did you do?
I came back and called the county detective car.
You used your police car radio to call?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any conversation with me just prior to or after calling the detective's car?
After the detective car was called, and if I recall right, I didn't write that down, I placed you under arrest.
At that time I was placed under arrest?
I believe they was there then.
Under what charge? For what charge?
Evading.
How did you place me under arrest?
Objection, irrelevant.
What did you say to me?
Pardon?
What did you say to me? You said you placed me under arrest. Was there a communication value to me that you placed me under arrest?
Objection, irrelevant. Getting a little bit past the search now, Judge.
Well,
Being tied up, I don't know.
Search preceded the arrest, Mr. Bundy, is supposed based on testimony I've heard.
but it did not precede the seizure, Your Honor.
All right, so you tied it up.
Go ahead.
Let me get this from you. Sergeant, did you take into your possession at the time you initially entered the car, any of the items in the car?
I did not.
Okay, so you hadn't seized anything from the car at that time, had you? You hadn't seized any of the items you saw in my Volkswagen, did you?
No, sir.
At the time you placed me under arrest, how long had it been since the initial stop had occurred?
Just want a ballpark figure?
The best estimate you can give us.
$15 something of that effect.
Your Honor, could we approach the bench on the earlier question?
You want to report?
Yes, please. Stated earlier that you placed me under arrest. I'd like to ask you the question again. How did you go about placing me under arrest?
I told you was under arrest for evading a police officer. I stripped you and handcuffed you and placed you in my car.
Is that all?
Yes.
Immediately placed me in my car, or your car, excuse me.
I placed you in my car. Right.
Subsequent to placing me in my car, your car, did the sheriff's detective arrive?
Yeah, they were there.
And what happened when the sheriff's detective arrived? Let me ask you this. Who was the sheriff's detective who arrived on the scene?
Deputy Andre.
And what happened when he arrived?
He looked at paraphernalia, the tools and the different things in there, and he confiscated and brought everything back. And I remember you and him telling you what he was going to do. He was going to take everything out of your car, and if it constituted that the county attorney would give him a complaint for possession of burglary tools, that he would get the complaint and be in contact in the next couple of days.
Recalling remarks, if any were made from me in response to that?
You said something to the effect that that's fine.
You think is that what you, I hear you say you thought I said something like that? You recall that remark being made is what I'm asking you, or is it something you thought it might have been said?
By the deputy or you?
By me.
No, you said that.
Officer, after you had examined the interior of my car on that occasion with your flashlight, your testimony as you went back and asked me, quote, can I look in your car?
Objection, repetition.
What I'm trying to do...
It is repetition. Please state your question.
Certainly. My question is, Officer Hayward, can you recall what the reason was that you asked that question of me? Why did you come back and ask me that question?
It's irrelevant.
Why he asked it?
Why ask?
It is irrelevant. I don't know why he might have asked it. It's a question of its legal impact. His particular reason for asking the question is not significant, Mr. Bundy, as his compliance with the law. He might simply have been curious. He might have been a lot of things. Those things I don't think are probative. It's a question of fact for the court to determine the impact of the question, not why a particular police officer asked it.
If I might be heard on that point, and I don't think it needs to be set out of the hearing of the witness, isn't it also an issue, Your Honor, of the knowledge, facts and circumstances within the knowledge of the officer who initiates the search as to whether or not he had justification?
Well, his subjective justification is not the measure, Mr. Bundy. It's the objective interpretations as held by the court based upon his actions and what was said. That's the reason for it.
Did you say anything to Officer Ondrak when he arrived on the scene concerning the vehicle and the subject you had in custody? Did you say anything to him?
I can't recall a specific conversation. I must have pointed out these different items.
Is there anything in your report or reports that would refresh your memory?
No, I have nothing in there of conversations with Deputy Ondrak.
Did the search continue after I was placed under arrest? The search of my car, did it continue after you placed me in your vehicle?
I believe it went on.
What areas of the car were searched?
Objection irrelevant.
I'll let it be.
What areas of the car were searched?
It seems there was the two officers that were in uniform.